I caught her in a stairwell, with her boss. His hands were on her. Her lips were on his neck. And the worst part? She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even surprised to see me. She looked annoyed. That was the moment everything inside me snapped. 7 years. 7 years of loyalty, fixing leaks, canceling trips, holding her through grief, and she threw it away for a fling. She said I was boring. Predictable. That she needed more. I guess more meant betrayal and business casual. But I didn't yell. I didn't throw punches. I didn't beg. I walked out. And when she came crawling back, crying, pleading, saying we could fix it, I shut the door for good. I blocked the number. I filed the papers. And I took back every piece of myself she'd chipped away at over the years. She thought I'd break. She thought I'd stay. She thought wrong. Now she's jobless, dumped by the man she threw everything away for, and scrambling to find a life without a ladder to climb. Meanwhile, I'm free. I'm healing. And for the first time in years, I'm living for me. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about what happens when the quiet one finally stands up. When the loyal one finally says, no more. And when the one they took for granted becomes the one they'll never forget. If you're here, reading this, sitting with these words, I want you to know how much that means to me. This isn't just a story about betrayal or heartbreak. It's about surviving what you never thought you'd have to endure. It's about losing everything you thought was real, and finding yourself on the other side. And if you've ever felt invisible, manipulated, or betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart, then I hope my story reminds you, you are not alone. You're not crazy. You're not weak. And you sure as hell aren't to blame for someone else's inability to love you right. You stuck around because you loved deeply. That's not a flaw, that's your strength. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for showing up. For being here. For giving someone like me the space to be heard. Now, if you're ready to feel something, anger, hope, closure, or maybe just the rush of watching someone take their power back, I invite you to walk with me. I'm not going to sugarcoat what happened. But I will show you the truth. Let's dig in. Let's tear it open. Let's start from the night everything fell apart. The evening began like every other startup mixer, craft beers, fake laughs, and overambitious tech bros showing off their latest apps. I'd been to enough of these networking nightmares to know better. But my fiancée, Natalie, pushed us to go. It's important for visibility, Ryan, she said, smoothing her midnight blue dress in the mirror. It hugged her in all the right places, and I felt that familiar twinge in my gut. Back then, I thought it was pride. Now I know better. The venue was a rooftop lounge overlooking the San Diego Bay. Glass railings, string lights, synth pop pulsing through hidden speakers. I leaned into the bar and let the bourbon do the talking. Natalie, on the other hand, was magnetic, laughing a little too loud, brushing shoulders with anyone important, especially her team lead, Tristan. Tall, suave, with just the right amount of stubble and tech world charm. I'd noticed him before, the way he'd touch her arm for too long, whisper inside jokes, glance at her like she wasn't taken. But I told myself it was nothing. She was mine. She loved me. Didn't she? Around 8:30, she excused herself. Said she needed to touch up her makeup. I nodded, not thinking much of it. But 15 minutes passed. Then 20. That itch in my chest returned. I scanned the crowd. No Natalie. Then I saw her phone, abandoned on our table. She never left her phone. Ever. I picked it up. The screen lit up with a notification. Tristan, rooftop elevator. 5 minutes. Can't wait. The bourbon churned in my stomach. I moved fast, through crowds of coders and investors. Past clinking glasses and startup pitches. The hallway by the service elevators was dim, almost empty. Except for the sound. A soft laugh. A hush. The stairwell door sat slightly ajar. I stepped closer. There she was. Natalie. Pinned against the wall, dress wrinkled, Tristan's hands roaming freely. His lips at her neck. And she was pulling him closer. Eager. Smiling. My heart didn't break. It detonated. Rage, disbelief, and that other thing I didn't want to name, pain, pounded through me. She looked up, eyes locking on mine. Not fear. Not guilt. Just irritation. Ryan, she muttered like I'd interrupted a meeting. Tristan straightened his jacket, smirking. I didn't say a word. I turned and walked away, past the apps, the fake smiles, the bright lights. Into the night. Into silence. And for the first time, I didn't care what came next. His mouth was on her neck, and she was letting him. No, she was pulling him closer. Time didn't just stop. It cracked. Shattered. My fiancée. My Natalie. A sound escaped me, guttural, unintentional. Natalie's head snapped toward the stairwell door. Her eyes locked onto mine. For a second, there was something, surprise maybe, but not guilt. Not shame. Just irritation. Like I had ruined her night. Ryan, she huffed, stepping back and straightening her dress like she'd been caught answering emails, not grinding against her lead developer in a maintenance stairwell. Tristan stepped away, smoothing his hair with an almost bored swipe of his hand. Like this was an awkward pause in a meeting. A hot pressure built in my chest, climbing my throat. Are you, my voice cracked. Are you serious right now? Natalie didn't flinch. She adjusted the strap of her dress, checked her reflection in the glass. Cool. Polished. Not a trace of remorse. It's not what it looks like, she said, voice flat, like she'd rehearsed it. Tristan snorted. Dude, relax. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. That was it. I moved before I even realized it. My fist collided with his jaw, the crack echoing off the concrete. He stumbled into the wall with a grunt. I was on him before he could recover, gripping his blazer and slamming him to the ground. Natalie screamed. Ryan. Stop. But I didn't. My knee pinned his chest as I leaned down, face inches from his. You think this is some joke? I growled. That's my fiancée, you arrogant asshole. He raised his hands. All right, okay, let's talk. I hit him again. Natalie yanked at my arm. Jesus, Ryan. You're embarrassing yourself. I turned on her, chest heaving. I'm embarrassing myself? My laugh came out cracked and hollow. You're screwing your boss during a professional event, and I'm the one out of line? She crossed her arms like I was a toddler mid-tantrum. You're acting like a child. My jaw clenched until my teeth ached. Tristan coughed, pushing himself upright, blood running from his nose. You're unhinged, he spat. I took a slow step forward. He flinched hard. Try me, I whispered. Natalie stepped between us, palm up. Enough. Both of you. But there was no us anymore. Not after this. Both of you, Natalie snapped, holding out a hand like she was managing a boardroom tantrum. Then she turned to me with a sigh, like I was a client who missed a deadline. We'll talk about this at home. Home? My mouth went dry. I stared at her. Talk? She was standing there, arms crossed, tone clipped, as if she hadn't just detonated the life we'd built together. Her voice was calm. Professional. Like this wasn't betrayal. Like it was logistics. I took a deep breath. Exhaled. My hands were still shaking. Then I turned and walked. No words. No looking back. Because if I stayed one more second, I was going to put Tristan through the wall. And Natalie? I didn't even know who she was anymore. I stormed out of the stairwell, each step louder than the last. My fists were clenched so tight my nails dug half-moons into my palms. My heart pounded in my chest like it was trying to escape. My head swam, rage, disbelief, and that other thing I didn't want to name, pain. The night was a blur. The rooftop buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, as if the world hadn't just collapsed under my feet. I shoved past a waiter carrying truffle sliders, past executives with startup dreams and overpriced shoes. Nobody noticed me. Nobody saw the wreckage. I didn't even stop for my coat. I just needed out. The cold night air hit me like a slap. San Diego rarely got cold, but tonight it did. Or maybe it was just me. I staggered onto the sidewalk, breath short, each exhale curling into mist. I ran a shaking hand through my hair. Trying to think. Trying to make sense of anything. Natalie. Natalie. The woman I'd spent 6 years building a life with. Who just this morning kissed me like everything was fine. Like she wasn't sneaking around with Tristan in stairwells behind my back. Had it been months? Longer? Had she ever really loved me? I pulled out my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't even know what I was looking for. Messages? Evidence? Something to make this make sense? A familiar voice broke through the fog. Ryan? I turned. Jake stood by the valet, cigarette half-lit in his hand. My best friend. He worked with another firm, had mentioned dropping by for a few drinks. You good, man? You look like you just got hit by a bus. I let out a bitter laugh. Worse. He stepped closer, flicking the cigarette away. What happened? I didn't answer right away. My throat tightened. But then it spilled out, bitter and raw. Natalie. She's cheating on me. With her boss. Jake's face fell. What the F? In the stairwell, I muttered. Right in the middle of the event. His fists clenched. Jesus, man. I nodded, empty. Didn't even try to deny it. Jake let out a slow breath, rubbing his jaw. Jesus. I knew she was a lot to handle, but this. I shot him a sharp look. You knew? He hesitated. Not this, exactly. But, come on, Ryan. You gotta admit. She's been off for a while. He wasn't wrong. Cold. Distant, he continued. Always turning it back on you. Like you were the problem. I clenched my jaw. Yeah. I noticed. I just didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. Jake exhaled hard and slumped into the chair across from me. So what now? I wanted to say something solid. Kick her out. Call a lawyer. Burn every trace of her. But the truth? I didn't know. I'd never pictured myself in this role, the betrayed one. The guy everyone pities at work. The one who got blindsided. And Natalie? She wasn't even texting. No calls. No panic. Like I hadn't just caught her mid-affair with her boss. Like I wasn't even worth the cleanup. Jake clapped a hand on my shoulder. Look, man. You don't have to have a plan tonight. Just, don't go back there. Not yet. He was right. The thought of walking into that condo, her place, technically, made me sick. Come back to mine, Jake offered. Couch is yours. Clear your head. I hesitated. Then nodded. Anything was better than seeing her face. Later, at Jake's apartment, he poured me a whiskey without asking. We didn't talk much. I dropped onto the couch, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor. He paced. I still can't believe she pulled that crap at a work event, he muttered. Didn't even try to hide it. Like she wanted you to see it. The words hit harder than I wanted them to. Had she? Was this some twisted out? Had she stopped caring altogether? My phone buzzed. For a second, my heart stuttered. Maybe it's her. Maybe she realized what she did. Maybe she was calling to explain, to apologize, to beg. I looked down. Natalie. Rage punched through the fog. I let it ring. I couldn't hear her voice, not now. Then came the text. Natalie, we need to talk. I scoffed, bitter. Now she wants to talk? Where was that when she was pinned to Tristan like a damn prize? Jake looked over. Her? I nodded, jaw clenched. Yeah. He shook his head. Don't answer. Not tonight. And for once, I didn't. Now she wanted to talk? After everything? Jake glanced over my shoulder. You gonna answer that? I shook my head. Screw her. But anger wasn't enough to drown the ache in my chest. The why still pulsed like an open wound. Why him? Why like that? Had she ever even loved me at all? And the worst part? I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the truth. The next morning, I woke up to the buzz of my phone on Jake's coffee table. My head throbbed, my mouth was dry, and the room still smelled like whiskey and regret. But the second I saw her name flash across the screen, Natalie, the hangover vanished. I let it ring. Then came the text. Natalie, we need to talk. I'll be home tonight. Home. Except it didn't feel like home anymore. Jake walked in from the kitchen, 2 coffees in hand. He tossed one onto the couch cushion next to me. She still calling? I nodded. Wants to talk. He snorted. What's left to say? You caught her. That's the whole damn story. I stared into the rising steam of my cup. I don't know. I guess. I need to hear it. Even if it's bullshit. Jake shook his head. You want closure? Fine. But just don't forget what you saw, man. People don't do that by accident. That wasn't a mistake. That's who she is. He wasn't wrong. Every part of me knew he wasn't. But 7 years doesn't just vanish. So, against better judgment, I went back. The moment I stepped inside, the place felt foreign. Quiet. Clean. Staged. Our framed photo sat on the shelf, her laughing in that vineyard in Temecula. I nearly smashed it. Instead, I poured a drink. The front door clicked open. Natalie stepped in like she'd just come back from yoga, not from detonating our life. She dropped her purse, ran a hand through her hair, and let out this dramatic sigh. As if I was the problem. We need to talk, she said, arms crossed. I leaned on the counter, swirling the whiskey. Go ahead. She hesitated. Then squared her jaw. You overreacted last night. I actually laughed. A short, bitter burst. Overreacted? I echoed. You cheated on me in a stairwell, Natalie. I caught you with your boss, Natalie. In a stairwell. At your own company's event. I took a slow sip of whiskey, letting the silence settle like a weight between us. Tell me, I said evenly, what should the appropriate reaction have been? She rolled her eyes. Rolled. Her. Damn. Eyes. You always do this, Ryan, she snapped. You make everything into some huge drama. Nothing even happened. I slammed the glass onto the counter, hard enough that she flinched. Nothing? My voice shook with fury. I saw his hands on you. I saw your lips on his neck. I heard you giggling like some teenage girl behind the bleachers. And you're going to stand there and say nothing happened? She sighed, like I was the exhausting part of this. It was just a mistake, okay, she muttered. A stupid, meaningless mistake. I tilted my head, slowly. A mistake is forgetting to turn off the stove. What you did. That was a choice. She huffed. I was drunk. It wasn't serious. I let out a cold, bitter laugh. Drunk? Natalie, you had 2 glasses of wine. You weren't stumbling. You weren't slurring. You were in control. Her face twisted into something hard and defensive. Why are you acting like I murdered someone? It was just a little, messing around. She threw up her hands. Jesus, Ryan. You're acting like I had some full-blown affair. That word hit like a gut punch. Affair. I took a breath and gripped the counter, trying to stay steady. How long? I asked quietly. She blinked. What? How long? She looked away. Suddenly her confidence cracked, eyes darting to the floor. It doesn't matter. My fist slammed the countertop, making her jump. How long, Natalie? A long pause. Then a shallow exhale. A few months, she said. My stomach turned. Months. Not a one-time betrayal. Not a drunken slip. Every late night. Every fake conference. Every time she came home distant. It was all him. I should have walked away then. Should have packed a bag and left her with the lies. But something inside me still needed the answer. Why him? I asked, barely above a whisper. Natalie rolled her eyes again. I don't know, Ryan. Maybe because he actually listens. Maybe because he doesn't make me feel like a burden. Her voice sharpened. Maybe because he's exciting. That last word, exciting, cut like a blade to the gut. I stared at her, my grip tightening around the glass. She shrugged. Come on, Ryan. We both know things haven't exactly been amazing between us. Her voice was flat. Like she was explaining a bad haircut, not dismantling a relationship. Maybe if you weren't so boring, so predictable, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. I saw red. But I didn't throw the glass. Didn't scream. I just smiled. And that smile? It did something to her. She shifted. Just slightly. What? She asked, suddenly less certain. I took another sip of whiskey, letting the burn steady me. I was ready to hear you out, I said, voice low, too calm. I was ready to believe this was just one dumb mistake. I set the glass down. Took a step toward her. But now? Now I see it. You're not sorry. You don't even feel bad. Her mouth opened, but I raised a hand. You're a selfish, lying piece of shit, Natalie. Her eyes narrowed. You know what? Screw you, Ryan. I don't need this. You're acting like some saint when you were barely even present half the time. I breathed in through my nose, slow and measured. You're right. She blinked. I wasn't a good fiancé, I continued. Because if I had been, I would have realized who I was really living with. She scoffed. Oh, please. I walked past her, heading for the bedroom. Where are you going? She called, voice sharp. I didn't look back. To pack. She let out a bitter laugh. You're being so dramatic. I paused in the hallway, then turned just enough to meet her gaze. No, Natalie. I'm being done. And for the first time that night, something flickered in her face, panic. Not regret. Not remorse. Just fear. Because she was finally losing control. But it was too late. She'd already lost me. I yanked my suitcase from the top shelf, nearly collapsing a pile of folded sweaters with it. My hands moved on autopilot, shirts, jeans, chargers, whatever I could grab. Behind me, her voice rang out, sharp, annoyed. Not apologetic. Not pleading. Just annoyed. Oh, come on, Ryan. You're really doing this? Running away like a little bitch? Natalie's voice sliced through the air like a whip, sharp and disdainful, echoing in the apartment they had once called home. Ryan let out a low, bitter laugh, dry, hollow, the sound of a man who'd reached his breaking point. You cheated on me, Natalie, he said, his voice like gravel scraping asphalt. And I'm the bitch? She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, posture relaxed as if she hadn't just detonated their entire life together. The faint scent of her perfume, the one he had bought her last Christmas, floated between them like an unwelcome guest. I made a mistake, okay? Yeah, I should have handled it better. She shrugged, dismissive. But you're blowing this way out of proportion. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest, an invisible cord wrapping around his ribs, making it hard to breathe. His fingers fumbled with the zipper of the suitcase. 7 years of a shared life reduced to clothes stuffed into a bag. "You're gonna throw away 7 years over this?" she asked, her voice a strange mix of annoyance and disbelief, as if the idea of him walking away was laughable. He zipped the suitcase with a sharp tug and turned slowly to face her. "You threw away 7 years," he said quietly, "the second you decided to screw your boss in a stairwell." Her mouth flattened into a tight line. For a moment, he saw a flicker of something, shame? Regret? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She tossed her blonde hair over her shoulder, a rehearsed gesture, one he'd once found charming. "You don't have to be such an asshole about it," she said, arms folding tighter. Ryan took a slow step toward her. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "Do you hear yourself? You cheated, lied, and humiliated me. And now you're calling me names?" Natalie rolled her eyes, the same way she used to when he forgot to pick up milk or when he asked her to put her phone down during dinner. "Let's be real, Ryan. Things haven't been great for a while. You've been checked out. Predictable. Boring." There it was. That word again. Boring. It had been slicing at him all night, each repetition another cut across skin already raw. His jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. He could taste the bitter acid rising in his throat. "So your solution," he said through gritted teeth, "was to sleep with your boss?" Her lip curled into a half-smirk. "You know what? Yeah. Maybe it was." Something in him cracked, sharp, final, irreversible. He turned without thinking, reached for the framed photo on the mantel, the two of them at the Grand Canyon, sunset behind them, arms wrapped tight, smiles wide and plastic. It shattered against the wall in a spray of glass and splintered wood. Natalie gasped, jerking back. "Jesus, Ryan. I gave you everything," he hissed, pointing a trembling finger at her. "Everything. And you don't get to stand there and act like this is somehow my fault. You were never enough," she snapped, her voice rising for the first time, cheeks flushing with heat. "You were never present, never fun. I needed more than some emotionally unavailable handyman with a predictable routine." Ryan stared at her, his heart pounding in his ears. There was so much he could have said. About the late nights fixing the leak under the sink. About the time he surprised her with tickets to Italy, only to cancel because her work needed her. About the way he'd stood by her when her father died, holding her as she sobbed in his arms. Instead, he shook his head slowly, a bitter smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Wow," he murmured. "You really are something else." She gave a short, mocking laugh. "And what now? You're leaving? Running to Jake's couch like some sad little loser?" His fingers tightened around the suitcase handle, knuckles whitening. "I don't care where I go," he said softly, voice steady now, calm in a way that made her flinch. "As long as it's nowhere near you." Natalie scoffed, folding her arms across her chest. "Fine," she snapped. "Leave. But don't expect me to sit here and cry over you." He met her gaze, ice cold, and for the first time all night, she seemed to hesitate. "Oh, trust me, Natalie," he said. "I wouldn't expect you to." He pushed past her, the suitcase wheels thudding softly against the hardwood floor, each step a quiet drumbeat of finality. His hand closed over the doorknob, fingers cool against the metal. Then, her voice, soft but edged with arrogance, floated toward him like a poisoned dart. "You know," she said, "you'll never find someone better than me." For a moment, just a flicker of a heartbeat, he paused. His back to her, eyes closed, chest rising and falling in a deep, measured breath. Then, slowly, deliberately, he turned. His eyes swept over her, cool and detached, the way you look at a stranger on the street or a painting in a gallery you don't quite understand. And then, he smiled. Not the broken smile she wanted. Not the wounded, desperate one she had expected. A free one. The night air hit him like a slap when he stepped outside, sharp, cold, electric. He drew in a deep breath, filling his lungs until they ached, and let it out slowly. The street was quiet, the only sound the soft rustle of autumn leaves tumbling along the pavement. As he walked to his car, suitcase trailing behind him, memories flickered unbidden, Natalie laughing on their first date, barefoot in the kitchen making pancakes, curling against him on the couch during storms. And then, the slow unraveling, late nights at the office, unanswered texts, the widening space between them in bed. He unlocked the car, tossed the suitcase into the trunk, and slid into the driver's seat. His hands rested on the steering wheel for a long moment, fingers drumming a restless rhythm. How had it come to this? But deep down, he knew. He had known for a long time. Natalie hadn't broken them tonight, she had just finished what they both had been avoiding. He started the engine, the familiar rumble grounding him. As he pulled out of the driveway, he glanced once in the rearview mirror. The house loomed behind him, dark windows like empty eyes. For the first time in years, he felt light. The phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Jake, couch is ready. Beer in the fridge. Proud of you, man. Ryan let out a soft huff of laughter, the tight knot in his chest loosening just a little. He turned onto the main road, headlights slicing through the night, and didn't look back. Hours later, after Jake had handed him a cold beer and clapped him on the shoulder, Ryan found himself alone on the back porch. The night was quiet, save for the occasional bark of a dog down the street. He tipped his head back, staring at the stars. For the first time in a long time, he wondered, not with dread, but with cautious hope, what might come next. Somewhere, far off in the city, Natalie was probably pouring herself another glass of wine, already rewriting the story in her head, casting herself as the victim. But for Ryan, that chapter was over. He took a slow sip of his beer, felt the cool liquid slide down his throat, and let out a long breath. He had walked away. He had let go. And as the night wrapped around him like a quiet promise, he realized, sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight for what's broken. Sometimes, the bravest thing is knowing when to walk away. And smile. Natalie, I said, steady and sure, anyone would be better than you. Her smirk faltered, jaw tightening. But I didn't give her a second look. I opened the door, stepped out, and slammed it behind me. Just like that, I was done. The cool San Diego night hit my face as I walked to my car. My pulse thundered in my ears, my breath fogged in the air. My hands shook, not from fear or sadness, but from the adrenaline of finally walking away. I popped the trunk, tossed my suitcase inside, then slid into the driver's seat. My grip on the wheel was tight, white-knuckle tight. And then, for the first time in weeks, I breathed. A deep, slow breath that felt like freedom. My phone buzzed. I didn't have to check to know who it was. Natalie, you're making a mistake. I stared at it for a moment. And then, without a second thought, I blocked her number. Tossed the phone onto the passenger seat like it meant nothing. I started the engine. Backed out of the driveway. Didn't glance in the mirror once. I didn't know exactly where I was going. And for the first time, I didn't care. Anywhere was better than there. No music. No GPS. Just the hum of the engine in my thoughts, roaring like waves in my skull. My hands were steady now. My heart, calm. The anger had cooled into something sharper. I wasn't broken. I wasn't confused. I was done. Natalie's face flashed through my mind, smug, dismissive, like I had been the problem. Like I should be apologizing. A few months, she'd said. Like that somehow softened the betrayal. All it did was make it worse. Like lying to my face for months was somehow less awful than a one-time mistake. I gritted my teeth and pressed harder on the gas pedal. I'd spent 7 years loving a woman who clearly didn't respect me. A woman who called me boring while letting her boss put his hands all over her behind my back. Jake was right, I should have walked away the second I saw them in that stairwell. Should have saved myself from listening to her excuses, from giving her the chance to twist the knife even deeper. Hell, I should have smashed more than just a picture frame. The thought made me smirk. Maybe I still could. The idea hit me so suddenly I barely had time to question it. But the second it surfaced, it settled in, sharp, obvious, inevitable. I slowed the car, pulled over on a quiet side street, and grabbed my phone. Scrolled through contacts I hadn't touched in years until I found her number. Then I hit call. It rang twice before a groggy voice answered. Hello? I took a breath. Melissa? A pause. Yes, who is this? I smiled. It's Ryan. Natalie's fiancé. Another pause, longer this time. Then, cautiously, oh. Hi, Ryan. Is everything okay? I almost laughed. Not even close. I think you and I need to talk. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from her at a dim, all-night diner just off the 5. She showed up in sweatpants and a hoodie, hair knotted in a bun. Tired, guarded, but when she saw my face, her expression changed. What's going on? She asked, clutching her coffee like a shield. I leaned forward. It's about your husband. That was all I had to say. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted in a silent no. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo, the one I took outside the stairwell. Natalie and Tristan, wrapped around each other like no one else existed. I slid it across the table. She stared. Sucked in a sharp breath. Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. Eyes wide, scanning every pixel. Then she laughed. A short, bitter sound. That son of a bitch. I raised an eyebrow. So you're not surprised? She exhaled, sliding the phone back to me. Let's just say, this isn't the first time I've had a gut feeling. But I didn't have proof, Melissa whispered. Well, I said, sliding my phone back into my jacket. Now you do. She leaned back in the booth, eyes fixed on the ceiling, the fluorescent diner lights making her look older than she probably was. God. I feel like such an idiot. I've been gaslighting myself for months, she continued. Telling myself I was just being paranoid. That I was imagining it. She looked back down at the table, voice tightening. And all this time. Her lips pressed together. All this time, he was screwing your fiancé. I let out a dry chuckle. Guess we've both been played. Melissa nodded, slow and deliberate. But when her eyes met mine again, the vulnerability was gone. Replaced with steel. So, she said, voice low and calm, what are you gonna do? I smirked. Divorce. Obviously. She raised an eyebrow. You sure? Because Natalie seemed pretty confident you'd just suck it up. My jaw tightened. Then she was dead wrong. Melissa stirred her coffee, then smiled, not politely, but wickedly. You know, she said, tapping the rim of her cup, if we really wanted to burn their little fantasy world to the ground, we could hit them where it actually hurts. I leaned in. I'm listening. She grinned. I'm taking half of everything Tristan owns. And I'll make sure the board finds out what he's doing with subordinates. I felt my own grin forming. I was thinking of dragging Natalie through the mud before walking away for good. Melissa raised her mug. Cheers to that. We clinked our cups together. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I got back to Jake's place just as the sun was starting to rise. The streets were quiet. My mind wasn't. I dropped my keys on his kitchen counter and collapsed onto the couch. Tired, but buzzing from everything Melissa and I had just planned. Then my phone buzzed. Again. Natalie. I stared at the screen for a second before picking up. What? I asked, my voice flat and cold. There was silence. Then, a shaky breath. Oh, now she wants to cry? Ryan, she said, voice trembling. Please, just come home. We can fix this. I leaned against the counter, rubbing my jaw. Natalie, I don't think you understand. She sniffled again. Understand what? I smiled, calm, final. I'm not coming back. Ever. She gasped like I'd slapped her. You're really gonna throw this all away? I let out a cold laugh. No, Natalie. You did that. Then I ended the call, turned off my phone, and walked away. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon and coffee. For half a second, my brain tricked me, just long enough to pretend everything was fine. That I'd find Natalie in the kitchen, humming along to the radio, pretending like she hadn't torched the life we built. But that illusion vanished fast. I wasn't home. I was on Jake's couch. My suitcase was still half unpacked on the floor, my hoodie draped over the armrest. Natalie? Probably still curled up in our bed, scrolling through social media like none of this had happened. I sat up, groaning, hands over my face. Jake strolled in with a coffee in one hand and a plate of eggs in the other. You look like hell. Feel like it too, I muttered. He handed me the coffee. So, what's the plan? I took a long sip, then sighed. Melissa and I are taking them down. His eyebrows shot up. Melissa? His wife? I nodded. Met her last night. She's not just pissed, she's surgical about it. Jake chuckled. I like her already. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. She's getting a lawyer first thing Monday. Wants to take Tristan for everything. Jake gave a low whistle. Damn. And you? Same. I'm not walking away quiet. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Never thought I'd see you actually fight back. I smirked. Guess I'm not as boring as Natalie thought. Jake laughed, shaking his head. So what's next? I exhaled slowly. Gotta go back. Grab the rest of my stuff. His grin faded. You sure that's smart? Don't have a choice. An hour later, I stood in front of the apartment door. Fingers hovering over the knob. My stomach twisted, but I wasn't leaving my life in pieces. I pushed the door open. There she was, Natalie, lounging on the couch in an oversized t-shirt, legs tucked under her, scrolling her phone. She looked up. Rolled her eyes. Oh. You're back? I didn't answer. I walked straight to the bedroom, grabbed another suitcase, and started packing. Natalie followed, leaning against the doorframe. So that's it? You're just leaving? I didn't look at her. I already left. She scoffed. You're being ridiculous, Ryan. I zipped the suitcase and turned to face her. You know what's ridiculous? Me thinking you were a decent human being. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, are you still on this? I clenched my jaw, trying not to snap. Natalie. You cheated on me. 4 months. You lied to my face. You made a fool out of me. And now you're acting like I'm overreacting? She crossed her arms, giving me that same smug expression I'd seen in the stairwell. Look, I get it. You're hurt. But at some point, you've got to move on. I laughed, flat and bitter. Move on? She shrugged. Yeah. I mean, come on, Ryan. You were never exactly exciting. I needed more. And that was it. That was the moment I knew there was nothing left to salvage. No apology was coming. No remorse. Just selfishness in its rawest form. I stepped closer, voice low. You're right, Natalie. She blinked. Wait, what? You're right. I was boring. I slung the bag over my shoulder and locked eyes with her. But here's the thing, boring guys don't stay with lying, cheating trash. Her jaw dropped, eyes narrowing with fury. You know what, Ryan? You were a shitty partner anyway. Maybe if you'd grown a spine sooner, I wouldn't have needed someone else. I smirked. Well, lucky for me, I finally did. Then I walked out. 2 days later, Natalie's world started to crumble. Melissa didn't waste time. Her lawyer was the best in the city, and by noon, Tristan had been served with divorce papers. Word of the affair reached his company, and since he'd broken their strict no fraternization policy, he was immediately placed on administrative leave. That afternoon, I got a text from Melissa. "Melissa, he's screwed. Should be fired next week." I grinned. Me, good. Hope he enjoys unemployment. Then another text popped up. "Natalie, I need to talk to you. Please." I stared at the screen for a moment. Then exhaled and typed back. "Me, too late for that. Natalie, Ryan, come on. Can we just meet?" Me, I'd rather set myself on fire. "Natalie, don't be like this." I tossed the phone onto Jake's kitchen table, shaking my head. Jake looked up from his beer. "She begging yet?" I smirked. "Oh yeah. Good." For once, I agreed. A week passed. Natalie's messages went from predictable to pathetic, then pathetic to desperate. At first, it was the usual. "We can fix this. It was just a mistake. I still love you." Then her tone changed. "You're really doing this? You're throwing everything away? You're ruining my life, Ryan." That one actually made me laugh. I was ruining her life. She tossed our relationship in the trash like it was takeout leftovers, and now she wanted to cry victim? I didn't respond. Not to her texts. Not to her calls. Not even when she showed up outside my office, standing by my car like some sad-eyed stalker. "Can we just talk?" she asked, voice cracking. I shook my head as I unlocked the door. "We don't have anything to talk about." She reached out, fingers gripping my arm. "Ryan, please. I need to explain." I pulled free. "You already did. You wanted more, remember?" Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't care if they were real or rehearsed. "Ryan, I cut her off. Let me make this simple, Natalie. The only reason I haven't burned every bridge between us is because I want this divorce to go through clean. So if you have any shred of dignity left, stop calling me. Stop texting me. And stay the hell out of my life." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her lip trembled. For a second, I thought she might actually apologize. But no. Her face twisted, and she hissed, "You're such a ing bastard." I smirked. There she is. The real Natalie. Then I got in my car and drove off. 3 days later, the next bombshell landed. Jake and I were sitting out on his back patio, nursing cold beers as the late afternoon sun slipped behind the trees. We hadn't talked much, just sat in that kind of easy silence you only get with old friends, occasionally clinking bottles and letting the quiet do the work. It was the first time in weeks I'd felt even remotely human. Then my phone buzzed on the table. It was Melissa. I glanced at Jake, a flicker of curiosity passing between us before I answered. "Hey, Melissa. What's up?" Her voice practically vibrated through the speaker. "You're not gonna believe this." I tapped the speaker button and set the phone between us. "All right," I said, leaning back in my chair, "hit me." Jake, already halfway through a sip, paused and raised an eyebrow. He leaned in slightly, sensing the drama. Melissa giggled, a sound I hadn't heard from her in a long time. "My soon-to-be ex-husband?" "Yeah, he's getting fired tomorrow." Jake let out a long, low whistle. "Well, that was fast." "Oh, it gets better," she added, her voice almost sing-song. I could hear the smirk in her tone, and it stirred a flicker of interest, maybe even a little apprehension in my chest. "Better how?" I asked. Melissa paused just long enough for tension to coil in the air. "Natalie," she said. "She's getting fired too." I blinked, stunned. "Wait. What?" Her laughter bubbled through the line, light and almost wicked. "Come on, Ryan. You didn't seriously think she was skating through this, did you?" I shook my head slowly, still trying to wrap my brain around it. Honestly, I figured she'd get a wrist slap. A quiet memo from HR. Maybe they'd shuffle her off to a different team. Nope, Melissa said, clearly relishing every word. Turns out, screwing your boss makes you a corporate liability, and when Tristan got canned, HR cut her loose too. I sat there, staring down at the condensation dripping down my beer bottle, rolling it between my palms. Natalie, fired. For a second, the image of her flashed through my mind, polished and immaculate, striding through her downtown office like she owned the place. The designer handbags, the heels that clicked across marble floors, the business trips to New York, San Francisco, Berlin, each one flaunted like a trophy. She'd built her entire identity around that life, wrapped herself in it like armor. And now, all of it, gone. Jake let out another whistle, shaking his head with something between disbelief and quiet satisfaction. Karma's working overtime. I let out a long breath, chest tightening. Guess that explains why she's been calling nonstop. Melissa chuckled softly. She's hoping you'll feel bad. Hoping you'll swoop in and save her. A hollow laugh escaped me. Not a chance. There was a pause on the line, and when Melissa spoke again, her voice had dropped, calmer, more serious. Ryan, be careful. I frowned. What do you mean? She's spiraling, Melissa said quietly. People like Natalie? They don't handle losing well. And when they've got nothing left to lose. Her words hung there, unfinished, but I caught the shape of them anyway. I ran a hand over my jaw, rough with 3 days of stubble, thinking. Natalie had always been the one in control, the one pulling strings, weaving stories, turning even her mistakes into something she could spin to her advantage. She knew how to win. She knew how to twist. But now? She was cornered. No job. No power. No leverage. And for the first time in all the years I'd known her, Natalie was out of moves. That made her dangerous. I looked up and caught Jake watching me, his brow furrowed. You okay, man? I nodded slowly, but the knot in my chest tightened. Yeah. Just trying to process. Jake leaned back in his chair, propping his boots up on the table. You know, he said casually, you've been handling this whole thing like a damn monk. I gave him a tired smile. What's the alternative? Burn her car? Slash her tires? He snorted. Tempting. I shook my head. I'm done letting her take up space in my head. But even as I said it, I could feel the lie itching under my skin. Because the truth was, Natalie still lived there. Not the woman she was now, unraveling at the seams. But the woman I thought she was. The woman I fought for. The woman I sacrificed for. The woman I built a future around. The woman who, in one stupid, selfish moment, blew it all to pieces. Jake cracked another beer and passed it to me. Here, he said. To karma. I clinked bottles with him, but my mind was already drifting, to the inevitable call I knew was coming, the desperate messages, the tearful apologies, the pleas to just talk. And the part of me I hated, the part of me I wanted to kill dead, was already wondering what I'd say when it came. Melissa's voice cut back in, softer now. Ryan, you've got people in your corner. Don't forget that. I swallowed hard. Thanks, Mel. We hung up a few minutes later, but the quiet that settled between me and Jake was heavier now, charged with everything unsaid. Natalie had always been a storm in heels, beautiful, untouchable, destructive. Now the storm was collapsing in on itself. And God help me, I didn't know whether to feel relief, or dread. 2 nights later, I learned just how dangerous. It was 2 a.m. when the banging started, hard, angry, relentless. I groaned and rubbed my face. What the hell? Jake was already up, peeking through the blinds. His face darkened. It's her. I sighed. Jesus Christ. More pounding. The door rattled in its frame. Ryan. Open the F******ing door. I rolled my eyes. Ignore her. Jake shot me a look. Dude, she's losing it. I flopped back onto the couch. Let her. Then, crash. We both froze. I bolted upright. What the hell was that? Jake moved back to the window, squinting, then cursed under his breath. Oh, that crazy bitch just threw ing rock at my car. I was on my feet in seconds, storming toward the door. Jake grabbed my arm. Ryan. Think. I exhaled hard, jaw clenched, fists shaking. She just... I know, he said quickly. But if you go out there now, she'll twist it. Say you threatened her. That you got physical. You know how she operates. He was right. Natalie was unraveling, and dangerous. But I wasn't going to give her an opening. I grabbed my phone instead. Dialed. She was still screaming outside when the cops pulled up 10 minutes later. I stood at the window, arms crossed, watching. Natalie turned toward the flashing lights, eyes going wide as the patrol car rolled up. Instantly, the switch flipped. Her voice softened. She stumbled. Clutched her chest like she was the victim of some invisible trauma. Jake muttered, "Oh, off." One of the officers approached her, speaking low and calm. She wiped her eyes, pointed at our building. Classic act. I shook my head. She's really trying to play the victim. Jake raised his phone. Good thing I recorded everything. That ended her show quick. The second the officers mentioned pressing charges for property damage, Natalie's tears dried up. She stood straighter, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like I had betrayed her. She knew it was over. And I had never felt so goddamn satisfied. The next morning, the official divorce papers arrived from my lawyer. No alimony. No negotiation. No reconciliation. Natalie called one final time. I let it ring. Then I blocked her number. And for the first time in years, I felt free. With the evidence we had, her affair, her HR violations, her meltdown, my lawyer said she wouldn't walk away with a penny. No leverage. No way to twist the narrative. I didn't check her socials. Didn't ask around. As far as I was concerned, Natalie ceased to exist the second I hit block. But then, a month later, Melissa called. "You're gonna want to hear this," she said, her voice laced with amusement. I put her on speaker. "What now?" Melissa laughed. "Natalie's spiraling. Tried to get a job in the same industry. But guess what? No one will touch her." Jake, sitting across from me, gave a low whistle. "Damn. Corporate karma." "Damn," Jake muttered. "Guess sleeping your way up the corporate ladder doesn't work when everyone knows you're a walking liability." "Exactly," Melissa said. "Last I heard, she's working at some dingy little cafe downtown, and hating every second of it." I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. "Good." Melissa chuckled. "Oh, and Ryan? She's dating again." Jake barked a laugh. "Oh, this should be rich." I rolled my eyes. "And?" Melissa's grin practically came through the speaker. "Guess who she's with?" I frowned. "Who?" "My dumbass ex-husband." I blinked. Then I laughed, hard. Jake doubled over, slapping the table. "Oh, that's 2F ****ing good." "Yep," Melissa said, smug. "Two cheaters. Stuck with each other. It's poetic, really." I shook my head, still laughing. "They deserve each other. They really do." There was a short silence. Then Melissa asked, "So, how's life, Ryan?" I took a sip of my beer, thinking. For the first time in years, I didn't feel tense. I didn't feel like I had to edit myself for someone else's approval. I wasn't tiptoeing around moods or expectations. I was free. I smirked. "Life's good, Melissa. Really good." She chuckled. "Glad to hear it." I ended the call and leaned back, stretching. Jake grinned across the table. So, what now? I thought about it, about the silence, the space, the future. About finally living for myself. About what it meant to rebuild without anyone else's expectations hanging over me. Then I looked at him and grinned back. Whatever the hell I want. If you've made it this far, if you've followed every twist, every betrayal, every gut punch, I want to say one thing: thank you. Not just for listening to my story, but for truly seeing me. Because for a long time, I didn't feel seen. I was the guy standing in the background at every party, the one who quietly held everything together while the spotlight fell on someone else. I was the steady one, the reliable one, the one you could count on, until you didn't need to anymore. I gave my love freely, poured myself into a relationship I believed in, only to discover I was never more than a placeholder in her eyes. Someone safe, someone stable, until someone better came along. And when that happened, I was left standing in the wreckage, asking myself, was I ever truly loved, or was I just convenient? Here's what I've learned, what I want you to carry with you: losing someone who didn't value you isn't a loss. It's a release. It's the universe intervening, removing from your life the person you were too loyal to walk away from on your own. And make no mistake, it hurts. It rips something out of you. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every conversation, every laugh we shared, wondering how it all came undone. There were mornings I woke up hoping it had all been a bad dream. But as time passed, something remarkable happened. The further I moved away from her, the closer I came back to myself. To everyone who's ever been gaslit into silence, to anyone who's ever questioned their own worth because of someone else's betrayal, I see you. I know the weight you carry. I know how it feels to stand in front of the mirror and not recognize the person staring back, to wonder when you stopped laughing, when you stopped shining. I know what it's like to doubt yourself so thoroughly that you forget where she ended and you began. And if you're sitting in that same emotional prison now, wondering if you're strong enough to leave, I want you to know this: you don't have to stay there. You are not obligated to spend your life proving your worth to someone who can't see it. I won't lie to you, walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done. It wasn't a cinematic moment, no sweeping goodbye or slammed door. It was quiet. It was a decision I made in the privacy of my own heart. And in that moment, I realized something no one had ever told me: you don't have to wait for them to change to save yourself. You don't have to wait for them to see your worth to walk away. You can choose you. When you stop begging for love from someone who weaponized your loyalty, you start reclaiming your power. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into their world, and you begin expanding into your own. You remember what it feels like to breathe, to laugh without second guessing, to stand tall without apology. And it's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as packing a bag, blocking a number, or waking up one morning and realizing you haven't cried in days. So here's my call to you, my call to all of us who have loved too long and lost too much: support those who leave. Applaud them. Tell them they are brave, not broken. Don't ask why they stayed so long, tell them you're proud they found the strength to go. Share your story, not just for me, but for every Ryan, every Melissa, every Jordan who is sitting at the edge of their own unraveling, wondering if they have the right to walk away. Let's remind each other that leaving is not failure, it's survival. And if you're still in it, if you're still convincing yourself that love means sacrifice, that pain is just part of passion, that betrayal is something you can outlove, take a breath. Go to the mirror tonight, look yourself in the eyes, and ask, if someone treated my best friend the way I'm being treated, would I tell them to stay? You already know the answer. Here's the truth: you don't have to burn everything down to take your life back. You don't have to break dishes, yell in the street, or craft the perfect exit speech. Sometimes taking your life back is as soft as a quiet goodbye, as steady as one foot in front of the other, as freeing as the first deep breath you take without waiting for their approval. To those of you who have stood beside me, who have reached out with words of encouragement, with stories of your own, with the simple message, I see you, I hear you, you matter, thank you. You reminded me that I am not crazy, not weak, and most importantly, not alone. You reminded me that I am not defined by the person who hurt me, but by the way I rose after the fall. We are not the villains in their story, we are the survivors of our own. Here's my advice to you, from one survivor to another. Never beg to be chosen. Never lower yourself or compromise your worth just to fit into someone else's life. You are not here to compete for a place in someone's heart. You are here to live your truth, to walk in your own light, and to be loved for exactly who you are. Never apologize for having standards or setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to healthier relationships. They protect your peace, guard your heart, and remind both you and others that you matter. Saying no doesn't make you difficult. Asking for respect doesn't make you demanding. It makes you aware of your worth. Never beg to be chosen or shrink to fit someone else's idea of love. Never mistake being tolerated for being loved. Real love doesn't ask you to become small, quiet, or invisible. Real love celebrates who you are, the messy, brilliant, beautiful, imperfect you. And above all, never, never mistake being tolerated for being loved. You deserve more than to be an afterthought, more than to be someone's convenient option. You deserve to be someone's priority. You have one life. Make sure it's yours. Choose joy over chaos. Choose peace over conflict. Choose love, yes, but begin that love story with yourself. Wake up each morning and know you are worthy, not because someone else tells you so, but because you have chosen to believe it. You have given yourself permission to be enough, exactly as you are. If you're standing at the edge right now, caught between staying and leaving, torn between hope and heartbreak, this is your sign. You have permission to walk away. You have permission to choose yourself. You have permission to step into a life where your worth is no longer measured by someone else's blindness or inability to love you well. And when you do, when you take that first brave step, we will be here. Cheering you on. Holding space for you. Reminding you that you are stronger than you think, that you are more loved than you know, and that you are never as alone as you feel. Because at the end of the day, betrayal does not define you. Heartbreak does not define you. What defines you is your resilience. Your ability to stand back up after being knocked down. Your courage to look in the mirror and whisper, even through tears, I deserve better. Your quiet determination to walk away with your dignity intact, even when your heart is breaking. When you choose yourself, you are not just surviving, you are rising. You are reclaiming your life, your peace, your freedom. You are stepping into a life that is fully, fiercely yours. And in that moment, you are not just free, you are finally home. Ryan.